Project 39. This is the tutorial on how to make this 5x7 mini album. I use the Little Monsters paper from Country Craft Creations. There will be links in the description box on the paper and most of the supplies that I used, and they're all available at countrycraftcreations.com. I also will tell you that there is another video, which is the walkthrough. So if you want to see the details of the pages, go check that out, because otherwise this video will be way too long. I will tell you that it is a tutorial that shows you how to make the mini album and decorate the pages as we go. I meant this as a beginner's tutorial, so if you're new to mini album making, try it out. It should be simple to do, and if you have this paper, I tell you the measurements of the paper, and we decorate it through the video. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, let's start with making the cover. So I have two pieces of chipboard that are 5x7 and one piece that is 1.5x7. I have already put score tape on the back of all three pieces. So I am going to take a piece of pattern paper, and these are the patterns I'm going to use, and these are measuring 7x9. So we have 1 inch extra on all four sides. I'm not going to worry about the orientation because these spider webs, it doesn't matter. So I will grab my spacers, and I have the spacers that I got from Country Craft Creation. I have two 1-inch spacers for this part of it, and I just take off my backing of my score tape, make sure my spacers are on. So this 5x7 will fit. So you just add 1 inch, so 5x7, 1 inch on each side, so it would be 7x9. So I just put it up against one of the spacers and then the other, and then peel off the spacers, or not peel, pull off the spacers. And I'll do the other one, and then I will go ahead and burnish. So this is the side I want to show. So I unfortunately have to cover up these beautiful designer paper here. But I've used that in the other mini album, those great little banners that are on the top I featured in the mini album. So I put down this other 5x7 piece of chipboard. I'll pull out my scoreboard, turn over my paper, and burnish real well. I'll go ahead and burnish this too. All right, and that's all there is for here. So now I'm going to fold over right against the chipboard on all four sides. So I'll do one long side, use the surface of my table to put the paper down, and do a really good job of burnishing at the end. Then I'll do the two short sides, and again burnish real well, and especially at the end where there is the overhang, the extra paper. And then that helps you. You can see now there is 4 corners on each edge, each corner of the paper. There's 4 squares. See the square? So I'm just going to simply take my scissors and cut them off. All right, and once that's done, I will take a pair of long bladed scissors. I just seem to find they work better for me. You could use whatever scissors you want. And I take the top blade of the scissors and put it against the chipboard and just cut off whatever sliver will come off. That's just going to be a little bit of overhang. You may have more on one piece than you will on the other. So I hold down one piece and cut off the sliver, and then I turn the whole thing upside down and do the other 4 corners. So you'll get 8 little slivers when you're all done. And you can see on my surface, they're not very big. I'll go ahead and add my glue to that tab. So I'll start on the long side. And of course for this I will use the glue from the Art Glitter Institute the Designer Dries Clear Adhesive. Make sure it'll come out. This is my favorite glue to use on all paper crafting products, and of course you can get it at Country Craft Creations. I'll take a bead of glue and just go down the edge of the chipboard and then go around the perimeter and then sort of zigzag. You don't need a heck of a lot, but you want enough so the paper will stick. Then I take my bone folder. This is a Dress Your Craft bone folder, and I've got this diagonal piece on the end, and it's great for rubbing your bone folder against the edge of the chipboard so that glue just goes across all the chipboard, and then I pull the paper down, go across the very top edge of that chipboard, and then burnish down. And I'll do that to all 4 sides. Keep a clean rag or paper towel or something handy if you have any excess glue. Make sure you clean it up as you find it. And then I will repeat these steps for the back cover. And you'll notice I'm using different paper on the back cover than I am on the front cover. I like to have something on the back cover, but nothing too drastic, nothing with any elevation. So I'm using the piece that has all the 31s on it, and I think that'll make a fabulous back cover. So I'm going to use this pattern paper for the spine piece. This will measure, so it's going to be 3 inches wider and 2 inches longer than our spine piece. Our spine piece is 1.5 by 7, so this paper is 4.5 by 9. So I will put this on my scoreboard using a 1.5 inch spacer on the side and the 1 inch spacer on the top. If you don't have the spacers, you could just eyeball it, maybe just score to determine exactly where you need to put it. So I will peel off the backing paper and put my 1.5 inch piece. I want to make sure that 1 inch spacer is straight. So I will put this right against the 1.5 inch piece up to the top to the 1 inch spacer. So again, you have 1.5 inches on each side. And then go ahead and burnish. And then I'll take my bone folder and crease the paper just to start training it, because we're going to be folding it. And you don't do it the same as we've done the cover. We start out the same, so go ahead and crease on the edges and go all the way to the 1 inch pieces top and bottom. And so in the corners here, of course, you're not going to have a square, but you'll have 4 rectangles on each of the 4 corners. So we will grab the scissors, see the corners, and we will cut off those rectangular pieces. So just cut on the score lines. It's pretty simple. And again, we will take our scissors and fold in the paper, putting the top edge against the chipboard. Just cut off whatever excess comes off. So we will do that to all 8 sides of the paper. All right, so we'll fold and burnish on all 4 sides, but we're not going to treat it the same. All we're going to do for the spine piece is add glue to these 2 upper and lower tabs and fold that down. So leave the sides the way they are, but add glue to the top and bottom. Take your bone folder, go along the edge of the chipboard, and then fold it in. I'm wiping up some of the excess glue here. I'm going to turn it upside down and take my bone folder and just go against the edge to train the paper to just have a nice score in it. Okay, then what we're going to do is add a piece of score tape to each of those sides of the paper. I'm using 1/4 inch score tape. I'm just putting it in the center. I'm not putting it right to the top or the bottom. having maybe a 1/4 of an inch gap between the top and the bottom. This is just to help hold everything in place while you're letting the glue dry. So I'll peel off the backing of the score tape, and then I use my spacers here because I want to put glue next to the edge of where that chipboard is, but on the top side. So I use those spacers to help draw a straight line with the glue. Now you'll notice here I didn't hold it tight enough and it moved, but it's no big deal. I cleaned it up. See, the spacer moved because I wasn't holding it. I usually put it down on the table. I don't know what I was thinking. So clean off that glue. Add my little spacer to draw a straight line. And then there we go. And then I'll add glue around the perimeter of the paper, zigzag a little. And that's all I need to keep this in place. Okay, I'm taking my spine piece with the outside face up, take the back of my book. I have to turn it upside down because I want the back, this 31 piece, to be on the back cover. And I just move it into place, push it down with my fingers, and then I'll grab my bone folder and burnish real well so the levels of the chipboard are even. So just do a good job burnishing. You're making sure that glue gets distributed. The score tape will hold it in place while the glue dries. Then I'll turn it, and I need to put my front cover, but I'll grab my glue and my spacer. I am much more successful here because I'm holding it down on the surface how I usually do it. Go around the perimeter and zigzag. Okay, it's great if you have the scoreboard because it's got two straight surfaces to use, but otherwise you can use just a line on your table, or if you have a mat that has the measurements on it, that'll help too. So again, I will burnish this to make sure it's adhered real well and going to stay. This Dress Your Craft bone folder is a non-stick bone folder. It doesn't leave any marks on the paper, and I love it. The best one of those things that you get from Country Craft Creations that you use every day, if you craft every day. So now that cover's a little wobbly, so I take a piece of paper. I think this is about 4 3/4, generally 5 inches wide will work, and it's just 1/16 inch less than the measurement of the book. So since the book is 7 inches, it is 6 15/16 of an inch. So anytime I'm using glue for the spine, I'm a little more generous than I am everywhere else. I just feel like the spine and the hinge are where everything, you're going to make or break your project by making sure it adheres. So I do add a little more glue than I normally would. So as you saw, I put it on the spine, and then I'll add it around the perimeter of this paper, and then just more on the paper. Again, usually I wouldn't use this much glue, but I want to make sure that it stays in place. So I make sure the bottom's in place, and then the top is lined up, and just burnish this well. And then once I know that it's burnished well, the glue is distributed, and it dries fairly quickly, I will take my bone folder and using the blunt end, boy, I'm doing a really good job of burnishing it. But anyhow, make sure it's even top and bottom, none of the paper's overlapping. So using the blunt end, I will open the cover slightly to find where the paper creases and just go back and forth several times to make sure that the paper will lay flat right in that crevice of the spine. And I'll do it to the other side. And then there we go. There is our cover. So there's the front, there's the inside, And we're done. And here I'm simply taking some walnut stained distress ink and inking up the edges of the book. It's a fairly new pad, so it's got some color to it. I want to have, I mean, you could use black. You could always just take your ink pad and just put it along the edge. But this paper absorbs ink wonderfully, but it might be a little more heavy. It might be heavier than what I was looking for. So anyhow, I ink up the edges of the book front and back. All right, we're going to make the hinge system. Doing it a little bit different than I normally do, so just bear with me. So my paper to make the hinge is 6 5/8 by 6 5/8. I want the stripe to go across, so this is the orientation I'm using. Obviously it's this paper. So I'm going to score at 3/4, at 1 1/4, 1 3/4, 2 1/8, 2 5/8, 3 5/8, no, 3 1/8, I'm sorry, 3 1/2, 4, 4 1/2, 4 7/8, oops, yeah, 4 7/8, 5 3/8, and 5 7/8. So you have 4 sets of 2 1/2-inch hinges. I'm going to turn it over, and on every 1/2-inch hinge I'm going to score in the middle, or every set of 1/2-inch hinges I'll score in the middle. And as I do that, I make sure that it's even on the sides. So we have 4 hinges, score in between the 2 of them. All right, so now I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm going to pull towards me so the little mountains that we've created will come up, and then I'll pinch that together. I'll fold back and forth. So I'll do that with all 4 hinges. So now they're more pronounced, although they're not glued together, and that's our next step. So I will add glue, just zigzag, and then go about 1/8 inch away from the gusset. I'll pinch that together, distribute the glue, and make sure it's holding together at the bottom. So again, zigzag, go across the edge, pinch that together, distribute the glue. If any glue seeps out, clean it up right away. So we'll zigzag here, go across the top, pinch that together, and one more. I don't put glue at the very edge because I want the glue to distribute, and it will, as you're pinching it together, it will move towards the outside. All right, and then I'll go like this to burnish them all towards me, and then I'll put them away from me. And there we go. Now, we've got these 2 wings. Usually I use those to hold this down onto my surface, but I'm doing something a little different this time. I'm going to take the wing on the right and fold that over, so that's going to cover the underside of my hinges. I'll add glue. Now here, I want to make sure it stays down, so I'm going to be fairly generous, but I don't want it dripping. So I've got this hinge on the bottom folded in, and then I'll burnish. And then I've got this wing on this side. Here's the hinge. I'm going to fold that in. So I'll add glue to this wing piece. I'm confident in this paper because it takes ink real well and it holds glue real well. So I don't always do this in this method, although Tamara's done it. And burnish that down. So now I'll take my hinges and have them sticking up. And there's no wings to our hinge system. All you have is the 4 hinges sticking up. So that's going to go centered on my book. I'm dry fitting it first to see where I'm going to put it. And if you want, you can draw a line. I know that I can eyeball it. So I'm adding glue. So because this is what's holding the book together, I mean, really it's the most important part of the book, I'm making sure I add enough glue, but not that it's sopping wet. I'm holding it by the edges of the top and bottom, centering it on my page. And I'll just take a look and make sure it's centered side to side. And I'm pretty comfortable with how it is. Okay, now it still can move a little bit. So I'm going to start with the center, and using my bone folder, I'm going to burnish in that center gusset. Then I'll move that hinge towards the center that's to the left of that. And then I'll move the one to the right of that center gusset. Oops. There we go. And then I can just burnish. Move these all one way and then the other and burnish. So again, if I wasn't using this paper from Country Craft Creations, I don't know that I would do that. I just know that this is going to stick real well and be super, super strong, especially if you're using the art glitter glue. I would not use score tape here, and I would not use an inferior glue, in my opinion. I'm just working it a little bit more. All right, and then I'm going to let that dry while I move on to making the base pages. All right, I'm going to have 2 different page styles. 2 will be a top loading pocket and 2 will be a side loading pocket. So for that you'll need 2 pieces of cardstock, and I am using the black artisan cardstock. I started with an 8.5 by 11 piece, so there's not that much scrap. The scraps I have are small strips. Will use what I can, but what I don't, I will find other uses for. If nothing else, I will ink up sentiments using white ink on black paper. That is fabulous for Halloween. So anyhow, you'll need 2 pieces that are 7 1/4 by 9 1/2, and you'll need 4 pieces that are 7 3/4. I'm sorry, 7 3/4 by 4 3/4. We'll start with the 7 1/4 by 9 1/2 first. I have my scoreboard. I'm going to put the 9, did I say the right size? I'm going to put the 9 1/2 side at the top, and I'm going to score at 4 3/4. Then I'm going to rotate 45 degrees and score at 6 3/4. So we'll do that with the other one. Score at 4 3/4, rotate 6 3/4. Now with I realize the error of my ways. We have to cut some of these down. So I'm sorry, you'll need 2 pieces that are 4 3/4 by 7 3/4. You'll need 2 pieces that are 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. And all you'll do with that is put the 7 3/4 side at the top and score 1/2 inch and at 7 1/4 for 2 of those. And these 2 I'll cut down real quick. So I am just going to cut 1 inch off of these. I was going to say, I don't know what I was thinking, but I do know what I was thinking. But I was thinking wrong. So I need to just cut 1 inch off of here. All right, so I have these 2 pieces with the 1/2 inch tab at the top. I'm going to miter the corners. And then I'm going to fold and burnish on the score lines. I'm going to just add some glue to the tab and line this up with the bottom and the sides. And burnish. And do the same for this. Okay. This one I added on the outside. It doesn't matter. This one will go on the inside. The only difference is you see this, but of course you're going to cover it with paper. But now your pocket piece or your hidden pocket won't get stuck in here. Like it could get hung up on this piece. So it's just one of those things. If you wanted, you have your choice of which way to do it. All right, so on here, you can use your scoreboard if you want. I'm just going to use scissors. And I'm going to cut on this 1/2 inch tab up to that first core line. Okay, and then here I'm going to cut it a diagonal from the bottom of the paper up to that score line. And then I'll miter that corner. We'll go ahead and do this one the same way. Just cut on the score line up to the that score line in the center. Miter that way, miter that way. And I'm going to take this and fold in the center, again making sure it's straight. And I'll fold that in and burnish and add my glue onto that tab piece. And then burnish that down. So I'll do the same with this. Fold it in half. Burnish real well. Open it up. Fold this tab piece down. Add glue. And fold that. And burnish. Alright, so we have our 4 pages. So I'm going to do one with the side loading pocket, then the top loading, side loading, top loading. I will grab my book, and starting with the one that's going to be the top loading pocket, I'm going to just dry fit it and see where that's going to be here. So it's I have a bigger space at the top than I do the bottom. The bottom I only have about 1/8 of an inch, and the top I have 1/4, which is okay because usually I have things sticking out of the pockets. So I usually like having more room on the top, but it doesn't matter. All right, so I'm going to start at the back of the book, and I'm going to put glue on this hinge, just the very top of the hinge. I don't have to go all the way down the hinge because this piece will stay on the top, probably the top 2/3. I would say a little more than the top half. I'll add glue to both sides of the hinge and then take my piece and put it down. So I'm not going all the way to the bottom, but staying about 1/8 of an inch away and making sure it's parallel to the bottom of the back cover. Once it's in and I'm happy with it, I'll burnish. All right, then I'll add my next piece. So this one is a tube, so you want to make sure you dry fit it, and that's fine. If for some reason there's no room, then you can always take off a corner of your hinge to make sure it will fit. But of course we cut this hinge a little bit smaller than our pages were. So I'll add glue to both sides and then take this tube, put it onto the hinge, slide it down, making sure it's even with this last page and parallel to the edge of that the first page we put on. I said the last page. It is the last page, but it was the first page we put on. And just burnish. All right, we'll do it again. When you bend your paper back, make sure you don't touch the page below it. I mean, you can always wipe it up, but still. All right, go up. Make sure it's even. And burnish. So far, so good. I'm liking it. Everything's coming together. And one more. Put it on, just slide it on. It'll want to go to the bottom. I put it at the bottom and then pull it up a little bit. If you put it right to the bottom, it sometimes catches and doesn't sit as, doesn't open and close smoothly. So you have to watch where you put it. All right, there are our 4 pages that are in our little book. At this point, I like to take my bone folder and burnish. Again, we train the paper to open and close. All right, now we get to do the fun part, which is decorating the book. All right, let's work on the inside front cover and the front of page 1. So this is what you'll need for that. You will need a piece of pattern paper that is 4 7/8 by 6 7/8. Another piece of pattern paper that is 4 5/8 by 6 5/8. I used vellum for inside pocket. Now, if you don't want to use vellum, you could use any of the decorative paper. I just was trying to get sort of an eerie feeling. And you also could use acetate if you wish. And then finally, you'll need a piece of cardstock that is 3 1/4 by 8 1/2. Let's do the vellum first. And then I'll show you what I used to decorate this. So the vellum I am going to score. I'm going to score it at half. I know it shows 2 1/2, but I need to hold this down. So half, and then with the long side at the top, score it 1/2 inch on both sides. See, that's tough to do there. And then miter the corners and burnish. I will go ahead and do that. Miter the corners. And I'll burnish in a second, but in the meantime, we'll get the 8 1/2 by 3 1/4, and we will score at 4 1/4. And fold in half. So we'll burnish this. And what we're going to do is we're going to adhere it to the back of our decorative paper. So I'm having this side of the decorative paper show. And I just put it on. It slipped on real nice, real easy. And I will just add some glue. I need to use my pen and get the glue to come out. Add the glue. So this is the inside. This won't be showing. So once we get that on, then I can add glue to the rest of the paper. So I'll put it on even on the top of the vellum. Now you could have used this side if you wanted to. I just chose not to. And then we'll put this on. So my pocket is going to be opening to the side, so it's the side closest to the outside of the book. I want to make sure the book will open without any problems. All right, so now what I'm going to do is take this other page. And by the way, I should have mentioned, I did ink around these edges using black soot. And this is the 4 5/8 by 6 5/8. And I'm just adhering this to the page. So there should be just a very small margin on all 4 sides, just about a 1/16 of an inch. And then I'm taking this piece that we've folded, and I am going to add, so I've got a pair of magnets from Basic Gray that are available at Country Craft Creations. The hardest part about using them is taking the backing off. I'm going to put one on one side and one on the other side. The outside of both of these, I'll show you in a second. So, whoops, one is on the outside, one's there. Those are folded. Now, you don't have to use magnets if you don't want. I prefer to use them just to keep everything closed. But I'm adding glue to the back of this. Go around the magnet so it stays. And I'm just going to center this, well, it's going to be more towards the top, leaving some room on the bottom. There's some glue coming up, so I'm just going to wipe it clean real quick. And then I'll take the inside and burnish. And then I have this cut apart that I'm going to center on here. Well, I guess I could have inked it. Oh, I did. And that'll go right on here. And we'll burnish. And then I've fussy cut a couple of the things from the other side of the page, well, not on these pages, but that I thought would be cute to add. So I thought we could add a ghost there and one here. Now you don't want to add too much glue to this because the vellum doesn't soak it in like paper would. So just be careful about how much you put on. And I'll put this piece here. And then I cut out some of the bats also, and I'm going to put the bats on this page. So I'll put large one here, the smallest one up there, and do I want a bat here? I think that's how we'll do it. So a large one in this corner, smaller one in this corner, and then just one in the center here. There, by having the bats on the 3 pages, or the 2 pages, the 3 bats on the 2 pages, it sort of makes it flow a little bit smooth. So this will open like that. I may or may not add paper here. I'm going to wait to see what we have left when all is done. And I will put a flap here, and of course we need a flap on the inside this pocket. But we will do the inserts a little bit later. So that's the inside front cover and the front of page 1. All right, let's do the back of page 1 and front of page 2. For that, you'll need 2 pieces of paper that are 4 5/8 by 6 5/8. That's the decorative cardstock, and I use the candy. You'll need 4 pieces that are 3 inches by 6 5/8. So cut it 6 5/8 and then cut it into quarters. So 3 inches by 6 5/8. You'll need 4 of those. Now these pieces I took from the border strip, and these are 3 inches by 1 inch. You could use something else if you didn't want to use this mummy cloth. But I'm going to use that. As for cardstock, you'll need 2 pieces that are 3 5/8 by 6 3/4. And you'll need 2 pieces that are 1 1/2 by 4 1/8. So this 1 1/2 by 4 1/8, we're going to score with the long side at the top at 1/2 inch and rotate all the way around and score again at 1/2 inch. And then I'm not going to score it at 1/2. This happened to be a piece left over after I cut the other paper. So I'm going to score it at 3/8. This 3 5/8 by 6 3/8 with the 3 5/8 at the side, score at 1/2 inch. I'm sorry, 3 5/8 at the top, score at 1/2 inch. All right, that's all the cutting and scoring we need to do right now. What we're going to do is fold and burnish on the score lines for the 3 5/8 cardstock. Going to miter these corners. And one of these will go on the back of page 1 on the left side. And I'll burnish. And the front of page 2 on the right side. Now, if you wish, you can add magnets to the pages here. At this point, I am not, but let me show you why. All right, so I'm going to trim off and miter the corners of this other little pocket we've made. Fold and burnish on the score lines. So I'm going to just put glue on the bottom tab and attach that to the inside of this pocket we just made. Why does that look wonky? Oh, because it is. It's going on the inside also. And actually, since I know I'm going to have paper to go all the way inside that pocket, I'll attach the tabs on the side as well. Now, here's a hint. If you're going to add magnets, you might want to add them to the pocket to keep it closed that way, because if you're going to add it to the paper here, you're going to have the paper to have the magnet go through, and also if you put something in the pocket, which we will. Another option would be to take a cut apart and use that. Glue this onto the paper, put the magnet here, and put it there. All right, we're going to go ahead and put the paper on. So I already have inked up the edges, and I did use the black soot on this. It's just there was so much black on the paper and it was so dark, I didn't think the walnut stain would really show up that well. So this will go here on the front. And these, of course, will give you a 1/16 of an inch or longer, depends on your scoring there, of a border around it. So I'm going to put this one in the pocket. That'll fit. And once it's in the pocket, then I'll just put my liquid adhesive around the perimeter and stick it down. I feel like sometimes if I take it out of the pocket again, it's not going to go in the way I wanted it to. And then I have these little strips. I'm probably going to embellish it a little further, but we'll start with that. And then here, I will go around the perimeter. Love the bright orange on here with the red tones. I mean, it really does look like fabric. Of course, it's just paper, but it looks like fabric. So I put the magnets on and I added a little piece of tape on top of it just because I wanted to get it done ahead of time and I didn't want the magnets to go anywhere before I recorded. All right, so then what we have is I'm going to ink this one just because it's not cut that straight, and sometimes if you ink it, it seems to hide some of the flaws. So what this is this is one of the cut aparts. I put it on the papaya, sort of a reddish tomato soup red cardstock. Then I put it on a black cardstock. Then I put a magnet on, and then I put more of the red. I fussy cut the red so it would fit. All right, and there's already a magnet here, so I know where that is. I'll add glue to this side and just hold it down and burnish. So I did this page so it closes with the cut apart. And it'll open that way. We need something in the pocket. And then this page will do differently. So again, there's the magnet. Oops. So this page is being held with the cut apart. I had glue coming out. This page is being held with the magnet on the little pocket. So I wasn't sure which one I did. I did one of each. Here's my little 1" by 3" strip. So that'll cover the magnet. And I know nothing will go over that piece because that's on the pocket. So it's not like you're going to put a little photo on that teeny pocket. Oops. I was a little crazy with the glue there. Still a little crazy with the glue. There we go, like that. And so that'll stay closed. It's just on the pocket, the bottom of the pocket. Bottom of the pocket. I made up my own word there. All right. I know I inked it, but just going to ink a little more in that top corner. I did not use this clown. He scares me. Alright, so that'll go just like that. And there's that page. So again, we need to put something inside the pockets. But that is the back of page 1, the front of page 2. Alright, for the back of page 2 and front of page 3, both pages we're going to treat the same. You will need a piece, so two all together, of 8.5 by 6 1/4 of our artisan cardstock. And I am going to simply score at 4 1/4 on both of them. And then we'll fold and burnish on our score line. Now this is another page where it's optional if you would like to, making sure these sides are even, add a magnet to the page. It's entirely up to you. But what we're going to do is we're going to put down some pattern paper. And I've cut this paper. I inked around the edges. And then we're going to put this on. So the reason it's this size is so you can put a 4x6 photo on without any trimming of it. And so one page will open like this, and that page will open like that. So what we're going to put on the front of that for the back of page 2 is simply this cut apart. So again, if it's 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, once it's folded, this is 4 by 6, that'll fit on with a small border. Now I wanted something to coordinate with that, but not be too matchy-matchy. So that's where we have to do a little constructing. So what I did is I took this piece and I cut it down to 4 by 6, and I inked around it because I wanted to replicate the border of this. Now it's not perfect, but it's close enough. It'll give you the same feeling. So this will go on. I'll just go ahead and glue it now because we can put it on later. I inked it with some candied apple. I tried to put on a little bit of, what was the orange? Rusty hinge. It's like a brownish orange. It's a rust color. And also ripe persimmon, but mostly the candied apple is showing through. So we'll put that on, making sure there's about 1/8 of an inch border all around it. Then this is cut down to, this was a scrap, so I would have had it a little bit bigger. It's 3 1/4. I would have had it 3 1/2, but it was a scrap. It's 3 1/4 by 5 3/8. It's a weird size. I would do, if you could, 3 1/2 by 5 1/2. And you can see the colors because I inked on top of this. So this will go centered on here. And the reason I'm using this is because I'm trying to replicate this background. And then, so on here we've got a focal element and some writing. I mean, I don't have the same thing that's not, I mean, if you had 2 of these, you could put 2 on if you want it to be matchy-matchy. I don't want it matchy-matchy. So I'm going to do this October 31 in this cut apart. It'll sort of give you the same feeling. Maybe not match perfectly, but it'll be close. Alright, so we'll just center that about 1/4 of an inch from the top. It may be a different measurement for you if your bottom piece is, if this is a better size. And then I'll put this on and go a little off the edge there, and really it's just to add another element that's got the orange on there. So there's that, and I will add this one on top. And of course I did ink around the edges with black soot, so that'll go. Right there, putting it on. All right, and then before we put those on, we're going to put this piece on. So I've got it going in the sideways orientation. I cut it that way because I wanted the scrap pieces to be straight up and down. So I cut it 6 1/4 from the 12 by 12 piece. 6 1/4. No, I didn't. 6 5/8 first, and then I cut it down to 4 by 5/8. So we'll put one of these on here. And then the other one will go here. And then you can put one on one side and one on the other, and then we'll have matching pages. Now, I already cut out this for the inside and that for the other side. You still can put a photo right on top of there and right on top of here. These are cut 4 by 6, and if you'd like, you can put a magnet underneath those so it'll close. So I'll go ahead and do that, glue it all together, and show you what I got. All right, so I haven't glued this down, but I have put the insides in. So there is that one, and here is that one, and there's magnets underneath. Now, before I glue it down, I thought, you know, we could glue it down so you could have it as a tuck spot and put a cut apart or a photo mat in there. So that's what I'm going to do. So we'll go with this one first. For the tuck spot here, I'm going to turn this over. I want it glued here, here, and here. So I'll add the glue here, here, and here. Leave this part open. So the part with the fold will leave open. I'm going to try to stay 1/4 of an inch from the side and 1/4 of an inch from the top and the bottom. So I will take that and place it, so there will be 1/4 of an inch all around the top, the bottom, and the sides. I'm going to open that so I can burnish it. All right, we'll let that dry a little bit and do the same with this. So we're going to have a tuck spot from here. So we'll add the glue here. Now, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. But since it's a smaller book, it sort of would be fun to have a little more room to add a couple more elements. And then I'm centering it on the page. I'll open this up. Use my bone folder and burnish on those 3 sides. I'm going to let that dry, and when we go and do all of the mats, then we'll double check on this and see what we're going to put in that tuck spot. But there we go for the back of page 2 and the front of page 3. All right, let's work on the back of page 3 and the front of page 4. So for starting this, I've cut 2 pieces of our paper that are going to measure 4 5/8 by 6 5/8. Now you could use either side, but because we're going to cover up most of them, I'm just going to use this side. And I have inked around these edges with black soot. Alright, I'll burnish that in just a second. Here's the one for the front of page 4. So again, there should be just the slightest margin border on all 4 sides, just about a 1/16 of an inch. Alrighty, while that's drying, let's get out our cardstock. So for this I'll need one piece that is 3 7/8 by 4 1/4. I'll need 2 pieces that are 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, and 2 pieces that are 6 1/4 by 9. I'll grab the scoreboard. So for the piece that's 6 1/4 by 9, we're going to put the 9 inside at the top and score at 4 1/4 and 8 1/2. So we'll do that to both of those pieces. The 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 you don't need to do anything to. The 3 7/8 by 4 1/4, score with the 3 7/8 at the top, just simply at 1/2 inch. Alright, let's fold this paper and burnish on the score lines. Alright, so what we're going to do is adhere this 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 to the tab, and you don't need to miter the corners. I'll add glue on the tab and then simply line this up and burnish it. Make sure it folds. And there we go for that one. And we'll do the same with this other one. I'll add glue to the tab. Add our 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 inch cardstock. Now, so you could put it down this way or this way. So I'm going to do one side. I want it so you can pull it and it'll go out to the sides. Now this piece is going to go in the center. So we've got the tab, and I'm going to put glue on the inside of this tab. And put that down, centered it. that'll keep that in place. And we'll add some magnets to keep everything solid. And I'm going to simply put glue on the back of this one. And again, center it on our page. All right, so now this one, now if you want, you can adhere glue to 3 sides so you can use that as a tuck spot. I'm going to do that. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it as a tuck spot, but I can always add something to it later if I want to. I'll add glue to 3 sides and center it on the page with about 1/4 inch all around. So this will open like that, that'll open like that, and then like that. So you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 2 smaller photos there. And here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on there. So I'm going to go get magnets on and get the pattern paper cut out, and then we'll resume decorating. And I'm adding one more piece of cardstock to the front of page 4. This is 7 inches by 4 1/4. With the 7-inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch and score at 3/4. And you don't need to miter those corners. We'll go ahead and fold and burnish on those score lines. And I'm going to adhere that. Open this up. I'm going to glue this onto the front of the very bottom piece of black cardstock. I'm going to glue it just a hair's width above that, so these pieces will close. So I'm going to make sure it's down and burnish. Now I am going to add magnets. So I have a positive and a negative magnet here. And I'm going to put it on the inside of this flap. Peel off the backing and let it catch to the bottom page, the bottom cardstock. So what'll happen is that'll close like that. Now I may need to put another magnet inside, but I will find out as we go. So to cover our paper, so I have this that goes on the top. Now it's going to leave a bigger border around it. Because there's a black border around here. Now I could cut that down and add something else that we'll show later, which I didn't do with this one. You know, I'm just going to glue it down as is. You have the option of gluing something underneath, because if you cut off the 1/4 inch borders on each side, you'll have an extra 1/2 inch, so that will work under there, but I'm not going to worry about that. All right, under here, we've got this magnet. Peel off the backing. And let it catch on to the back of our small 3x4 piece. And where did the other magnet go? I'll peel off the backing here. And there we go. So it's going through just cardstock right now. It's going to be going through pattern paper in a little bit. So you may want to add more to that. All right, going to glue this. So this is cut to 4 1/4. So if you wanted to, you can add photos to this just as is and cover the paper if you have 4x6 photos, or you could trim your photos down and leave a bit of a border. So we've got that. I think I'll go with these to add the photos on top. And then we've got this side. And I'll add one more to that in just a second. I need to cut some more paper. All right, let's see if I have enough cut. So I have one of these that I'm going to add to the underside of that top flap. So I considered putting some pockets in here, but I figured we want to keep it simple. We want to make it so anyone with 4x6 photos, it's easy for them to glue in. Now again, you can cut the 4x6 photos down, or you could just add them as is. I'll go like that. Then this will open. And I did add another magnet to the inside, because once we get these pages on, the magnets will be a little weaker than normal. Oops, and I still need one more. Four by 6. And so I added this piece. I guess I could do it with the plain side, but I liked having the cat and the witch showing. And then I also cut small pieces to go in this 1/4 inch gusset. There. And here. So this will go like that. And I need a piece to put in here. And I cut a 3x4 piece and that'll go right there. Alright, so this will open like this. That'll open like that. You've got room for 2 photos there, and then room for 2 photos here. And this will open like this. Room to put a picture here, one there, and one there, one there. And of course this is open here. So if you wanted to, you could put, that's a tuck spot. All right, that is the back of page 3 and the front of page 4. All right, we're going to do the back of page 4 in a second. First, we're going to work on the back inside cover. So I have my scoreboard and I have 2 pieces of cardstock. One is 3 5/8 by 5 5/8. We're going to put the 5 5/8 side at the top and score at 1/2 inch, rotate, score at 1/2 inch, rotate, and score at 1/2 inch again. Then we have a piece that's 4 5/8 by 5 1/8. The 5 1/8 side will be at the top, and you'll score at 1/2 inch and at 5/8. I have a slight gusset on this, and we're also going to round the corners. This is going to be a flap on a pocket. So I like to have the corners rounded on that. I'll put that aside for a second and I'll miter the corners on this pocket. And then I'll fold and burnish on score lines. Alright, I'll put that aside for a second. And here I will fold and burnish on these score lines. And it's a little tricky because there's that teeny 1/8 of an inch gusset, but you can do it. And I guess I will miter those corners. Alright, let's grab the book. Add glue to the top flap, the top tab on the flap, and line that up at the top over to the right side. Alright, and here I'm going to add glue to the bottom tab. Put it on the bottom. I'm just going to add this onto the bottom right now. And then I have a piece of paper that is almost 5 by 7. It's 4 7/8 by 6 7/8. What I'm going to do is slip this in here. I may need to trim it just a smidgen. So it'll fit inside that pocket, and then it'll, good, that's perfect. So I'll glue it, the tabs down, and then add glue to here. And then fold that up. And there we go with that. All right, have cut 2 pieces. This measures about 4 5/8 by 4 3/8, and of course I'll round the corners. Do I want that to be on the top? No, that's going to be on the top. That'll go there. And then this will go here. I need to trim that down. So this is, it needs to be about 4 3/4 by 3. So I'll trim that down and ink the edges. I have to figure out what kind of clasp I'm going to have on that. So I will do that first and then we'll get back. Alright, I'm going to do the circle closure on the back here. So what I've done is cut out 3 circles of scraps of my paper. I'll cut out a 4th one. There we go, I can put that away. I will glue I've also cut out 2 orange circles, so I'm going to glue 2 black circles on top of each other, then an orange one. I'll show you where I got that from in just a second. Then I'll hold it, make sure they're all even. Put this 3rd one there. And I just use this scrap of paper and cut 1 circle out from there and 1 from there. I like that dark orange. Oops. And I'm going to ink around the edges so you don't see the white of that. And then I will just try to cut a hole right in the center. Alright, and I've got 2 black brads. I know I had some spider ones somewhere, but I'm not sure where. So now this one's gonna go there. Is that centered? There. Not centered. So I will punch a hole there. And I'll take my brad, I'll take my circle with the hole in it and put that here. Turn it upside down, we're good. I'll pull my book in now. And glue that on the page. I've already used my corner rounder. I'll put a bunch of glue there to keep it steady, to round the bottom corners of this page. Okay, now this is going to go here. I'm going to place it where it needs to go and then try to line this up. Put a hole there so I know where that's going to be. And make a hole there. And before I put in the circle and the brad, I'm taking a little piece of baker's twine. I have some orange and white. And I'm going to use that. I'm just going to tape it down here. I'm sort of going to open up the threads. And adhere that. Then I'll take my brad and the circle and put it in through that same hole the baker's twine came out of. And then I can adhere this onto the bottom. And I'll add some more glue there. just to hold the baker's twine in extra strong. See if that's centered. That's good. All right. And then we've got the top part, which I have this piece. And I've already rounded these corners. And inked up the edges as well. And I'm going to just tie a knot here, just so if it unravels, it doesn't unravel too far. And that is the back cover. All right. This is going to go on the back of page 4. I want to grab some packing tape. Get this out of the way. Worst part about packing tape is finding where the end of it is. And I'm going to put the packing tape underneath where those figures are in the bottom. Varnish that real well. Now I'm taking my X-Acto, and what I want this to be is a tuck spot. So I'm going to make an imaginary line. Actually, this line is going to be my tuck spot line. And I'm not going to go all the way to the edge because the piece that we're going to put in there is just going to be 4 inches. So I'm probably going to start about here and end about here and go up to this line. So I'm going to just grab my knife and cut along the edge. Lots of corners on this, so you see I moved my paper a lot. Especially where this collar is, lots of corners. When you're doing this, which line? This line. Make sure you have a good new X-Acto blade. It makes a big difference. And of course I've got my self-healing cutting mat underneath, and that makes a good difference too. If you don't have that, then grab a couple layers of chipboard, or way back in the day people used to do this on an old telephone book. And telephone books are few and far between now, so a self-healing mat is probably your best bet. Alright, now what line am I going up to? Up here. Go across this way. That's my line. Alright, now I'm going to turn it over and look and make sure all of my edges are connected. Like here, they're not. There we go. Okay. So now you can see I've separated it and I can fit my fingers in. I'm going to gently take my Distress blender, trying to ink up some of the edges that are showing. Hard to get in a lot because there's a lot of corners, so we'll just get the bigger ones. All right, now you go ahead and glue this down, but you want to be careful that you don't glue down this part. So we're going to glue down this main area and the top. And before I glue it down, I'm going to just grab a scrap of paper and put it underneath so that when this comes up you don't see it. Just trim this down. And I'll glue this down first. So again, when this lifts up, the paper underneath is going to be the decorative paper. It's not going to be black paper. So now we can glue the top. And glue the bottom. And I like how this goes all the way across both pages. And we might use this one. I have to trim that down. How about this? So that makes that a nice little tuck spot. All right, that is it for the decorating the book. Now we have to add, we have a couple of flaps, a couple of pockets to fill. So I'm going to cut all that and give you the measurements, and then we will do the final touches, including the front cover. All right, let's go through and take care of all of the matting. So for the inside front pocket, I have a piece of cardstock that's 6 1/4 by 8 1/2. With the 8 1/2 inch side at the top, I scored at 4 1/4. I have cut 4 pieces that are 4 by 6, and I have inked around the edges, and I'm going to make a little folder with this. So there will be 1/8 of an inch around the sides. All right, let's see how I want to do this. So this can go like that. I'm making it so you can put this in one of 2 different ways. Now I also need to tell you that I am happily running out of paper. So this could be the other way. So, oops, I want to do it the other way. I had to be careful about what I was using and how I was cutting it. All right, and I believed yes. I inked the front of this. So once again, you can use a 4 by 6 photo and just put it smack dab on the front of here and you'll cover up the pattern paper, or you can trim the 4x6 photo and you'll be fine. So this one you could either have this as the front and put photos there, or this could be the front and put photos there. Now this again is for the inside front cover where we have that vellum pocket. Do I want that? Or do I want that? I think that brightens it up. Let's do that. All right, now here I just have 3x4 inch pieces of this orange check pattern just to put on the inside of here, and you can put your photos or journal on top of it. I did not use this orange check in the album. I intended on doing it, but I just never did. So I have a couple of pieces left over, so that'll be great. I can use that throughout the album as photo mats. All right, so now here, and this page too, oh, there it is. We've got room for some long pockets. Which one? So again, I was running out of paper, so I grabbed just some scraps from my stash. A green one. No, I think I want to ink it. And two of these papaya color. So if I ink it, it'll help tie it in. So what I like about these long pockets is it gives you room if you have Instax photos, or you can cut your photos down or whatever. So it gives you room to put a couple of photos, but more importantly, it gives you room to journal. And I think that's really important. So there's those two. I'll turn that over. Sorry, I'm way off camera. As you can tell, this was a textured paper, and this is just going to go on the back. These came from my stash, but if you're going to do this album and you need to order the paper, the papaya paper would fit. All right. Now, the other thing is, I have a couple of pieces of candy. Well, I do. There's that. There's that. And I should have there we go. So we can put that here. So why don't we do this? Since we've got that showing. Does this fit? Nope. I'm going through my scraps trying to find a piece to put down on here to anchor this. You know what? I'm going to cut this down because we've got that down on the bottom. So I'm going to cut, I'll get it cut straight pieces so that comes off. 1/4 inch. Half inch pieces, and And I'll measure this one more time. That is, so the mats are 2.5 by 6. So about 2 3/4 by 6 1/4. So I'm going to ink this up a little bit. And let's see how this looks. So if I put that there and that there, then you can start adding some of these, and that will just border it. All right, let's just put it down. Let's just make it work. So this will go on the top, about 1/2 inch down from the top. I was actually starting to run out of paper to decorate with, so that's why I'm just adding a couple of extra pieces. All right, I might not use these, but I've got an what the hell color is this? Purple here, so that'll go there. I have orange one here, that'll go there. After I cut it out, I did ink around it. So if I could use those. Yep, it's working. Eyeball there, and then I have a candy corn. That'll go down there, and another candy corn. Well, good. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to use those, so that'll go like that. All right, so one will go in here, and one will go in there. So there are those pages, and I sort of like them. Okay, now. Oh, I know what I have for this. So these are the pages that we have left open on the side. So I have a punch that is a tab punch. So I punched 2. I'm going to add adhesive to this and put it on just so that tab is sticking out a little bit on that one. And I'll do that one in a second. But in the meantime, so do I want to do this side? Nope, that, because if you want to put a photo on it, the smaller pieces, I would rather, if you were going to put a photo on it, keep it fairly plain. There's that, and then there is this papaya piece of cardstock. Burnish. And burnish. So this can go in here. There's a photo mat for that side. And now we've got this side. Oops, we need this first. So since I have the tab up here at the top, this tab's going to go down towards the bottom. There's that one. And papaya. We'll go there. So we've got it, it'll open like this, like that, and we've got our two pull-outs. All right, here, got that, and that. This one goes up, side. I do have it open on this side. I didn't over here. So, and I inked this. All right, this one is a different punch. This was a circle punch. Had in my stash for quite a while. And put that right in the center. And I'm going to add the monster face, or monster face, witch face on the front. Turn that over. Yeah, I know I just said that for a smaller one, I like to have it plain. Rules are made to be broken. The reason I put the witch on there is because when I go through and decorate one more time, I might add something else, but I liked having, see how heavily I inked that one? I liked having the witch face to go over there. I don't know, I just like to. So that can come out. I might add something to there, not sure yet. Okay, this one was just 3x4 cut apart on a 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 piece of cordstock. And this is a 3x4 piece of pattern paper, which I have inked. And that will just simply sit like that. There we go. All right, and this guess I should put this on some cardstock. So that is 4x6. So I will cut it 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. I'll save that scrap. I'll throw this one out. And I need something for the back of this. That's not 4x6. There we go. Cut this down by 4. want that? Nope, just plain. Oops, there was my inker. So right this way goes there. All right, now what we have, still the front, but one more thing before we do the front, and it's those hidden pockets. So I've cut two pieces that are 6.5 by 4 1/8. What I'll do is I'll do the fronts with the pattern and the backs just plain. And I love this pattern. I just think I was saving it to the end and then I ended up not using it. Now when I'm doing anything to go in a pocket, I really try to go close to the edge with the adhesive because I don't want it to catch when it goes in and out of the pocket. So I just do my best to add adhesive to the perimeter and then fill it in. Alright, so there's that. And then we'll simply put these on. For the back, so you can put photos here, and since it's elongated, then you'll still have room to add some journaling. So there we go with that one. All right, there's those two. And I will do two more. These are 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And on this one, this set, I rounded the corners with a larger corner rounder than I did on the other ones. So these are all the same size. This in. And let's get these in. So don't forget there was 2 top loading pockets and 2 side loading pockets. The side loading pockets were these, the 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And the top loading pockets are every other page. Page 2 and page 4. So we've got that one there, top loading here, this one here, top loading there. Getting there, almost done. I'm going to do a quick voiceover on making the cover. So I have just a piece of some sparkly ribbon I thought I'd put down first. These are little elements that I cut out of, I think it was the 8x8 paper pad. I backed them on cardstock, and then I added some string, and then I put a piece of scrap paper over it and added some dimensional adhesive. I'm adding glue too because I find over time dimensional adhesive does not always stay. It becomes really sticky and pliable. So I am just using glue just to make sure it stays down. And I think I end up adding a little drop of hot glue later. But anyhow, I add that to the top. I do have that fun fur. There's some hot glue to keep the fun fur all on the front. I tried to tie little bows, but you can't tell they're bows with all the hairs on the fun fur. I'll use that non-stick bone folder to hold it down while that hot glue is drying. All right, so there's the very top, sort of like a banner, but with those adorable elements. I'm adding some hot glue to the bottom because I want to make sure that it stays where I want it to. So I've got two kinds of glue. That's my favorite way of gluing, especially for the cover. All right, done with that part. Now I have some orangey yellow doilies that are Doodlebug doilies I've had in my stash. I cut this one in half and added one to the bottom, one to the top. I eyeballed it. I knew the placement before. And then I have this piece of corrugated black paper. It actually is from not Banner, I keep calling it Banner, a border paper for bulletin boards. And then I realized there's two pieces of the yellow doily. And I add the black border strip at sort of an angle. I don't want it to hang off the edge. Okay, here's a cut apart. I used some double-sided adhesive on the edge and added this fun fur. It's in a copper color. Now I'm adding some glue also, and hot glue. I don't know if you noticed, but the hot glue sort of makes it have a little bend to the paper. So I probably should have just stuck with the regular glue, but that's okay. I don't think when everything's done, anyone would notice. But I like the fun fur sticking out on top of the black border paper, corrugated paper. So I made a rosette with a strip of some leftover paper. I tried to put a doily on top, but I didn't like it. I have some foam adhesive on one side because the 31 and the corrugated is up a little bit, so I'm using the foam just so it is even with the 31 cut apart. And I'll use hot glue to help adhere that, holding down a little bit while that hot glue cools down. In the meantime, I have this little Happy Halloween. This is from the 8x8 cut aparts. I cut it apart, added it to some papaya colored cardstock, put a couple of brads on the sides, and then added it onto some glitter paper. And I'm going to put that on top. Of course, you saw I put the pumpkin on top of the doily. I added hot glue and put that down. I'm using the corrugated paper just to push it down. All right, so now that Happy Halloween, I really like that because the glitter adds just another little texture to it. I'm playing around with this cat to see if he adds to the cover or not. You know, I see some people that just stack element upon element upon element on covers, and it looks fabulous. I prefer a simpler cover. To me, this actually has a lot of different textures and elements on it, so I'm happy not putting the cat. You'll notice I've taken it down. I got some of that corrugated border paper again to layer, so that paper is even with that 31 cut apart. I'm using hot glue here to glue it down. Hold it down for a few seconds. And that is how I decorated the cover. Yeah, the cat goes away. I'm happy with this, so I'm just sticking to what I have. I do add a rosette to the cover. I cut it down a little bit because it was a little too big. I didn't want it to affect opening and closing the book. So that's why I didn't glue it down. I needed to doctor it up. And so if you've been following the tutorial, you should be pretty much done. You can go back to the walkthrough video to see any details, but I just wanted to show you that I added some ribbon and just stapled it onto these photo mats. And another step I take I haven't done it with, no, I did it with that one, this one. I grab a little mat and my little craft hammer, and I hammer down these staples and hammer the back. And that way nobody gets hung up on the staples. And two, it'll go into, if you want it to stick out a little bit less, it will go into the hidden pocket in the back. So again, just another, oh, I didn't do this one. Just another step that I do just to make sure everything's on. And oh, if I didn't mention it to you, one other thing I do is I take a alcohol marker, you could use a Sharpie probably, and I color my staples before I staple with them. Just, it adds just something else. So like this one goes this way. Just so you see some more ribbon popping out at the top. I like the look of having the ribbon. Now if you don't like it, you can just exclude the ribbon part. But there we go. So hopefully you've worked along with me and made this little mini album. Again, you can use this for other collections. It will go pretty fast, especially if you use the Country Craft Creations paper to make the cover. But even if you make it in black cardstock and have to cover it, it still will go pretty quick. So thank you so much for joining along with me. I really would appreciate if you liked this video and the others in the series. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Half of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribers, and that's okay. But you know, if you like my style, please subscribe. And if you want, you can hit the bell for notifications so you find out when my next video is coming up. Thank you so much for watching, and have a fabulous day.